Hi everyone, I'm Douglas C. Welch, and this is Careers in New Media. Well, each year, Janet Wilcox, instructor over at the UCLA Extension, has me in to speak to her voiceover class, and I love doing it. It's a great experience for me, and I hope it's a great experience for them. Well, this semester, she's teaching this course online only, so there's no place for me to go. What I told her instead that I would do is I would get some questions from her and her students, and I'd record this video so I could answer the questions they have without actually being there in the classroom with them. This allows them to watch it at their own time, at their own speed, and hopefully might generate some follow-up questions as well that they can simply email to me. So today we're talking about podcasting and new media in general, and they've given me a series of questions. So we're just going to jump right in with the first question. First question is, I often see people gaining recognition in other professions and then turning to podcasting after the fact. Do you have any examples, personal or otherwise, of the opposite? People parlaying podcasting careers into other professional opportunities. Well, first of all, you've probably heard of the more famous podcasters out there, Kevin Smith, Louis C.K., and a bunch of others. The fact is, they've taken the notoriety they already have and simply started podcasting to the existing audience they already have. That's why we hear more about them. They're already famous. And so you're going to hear about them much more frequently than you hear about someone who's perhaps just a beginning or an intermediate podcaster. The fact is, the one reason that they're starting podcasting is a benefit of podcasting that works for us all. And that's it gives us control over our product. It allows us to speak directly to our audience. And so I believe anyone can benefit from that. Anybody, regardless of their career, their job, their art, whatever they're trying to do, can use podcasting to talk directly to their audience. Now, of course, you're not going to hear about these people quite so much because their audience is a smaller audience. They're not Louis C.K. They're not out there doing HBO specials and everything else, but they have something to say to an audience that is interested in what they have to say. And the fact is, that's something I try to reiterate all the time. We all have an audience. It doesn't matter what we do. We could be a plumber. We still have an audience. We still have customers we're trying to reach, people we're trying to affect, policies we're trying to change. And so don't let the success of these existing celebrities podcasting dissuade you from using podcasting yourself. It works both ways. You can use podcasting to raise you up, and you can also use it to address an audience you already might have. If you look around, you'll notice that there are several podcaster, in this case YouTube personalities, who have parlayed their new media work into bigger things. In the kid world, we can look at Fred, who has started his podcast channel on YouTube and now has parlayed that into movies, television, and a bunch of other things. So you can certainly work from the bottom up. That does occur if you're looking at something like The Guild, for example, with Felicia Day. They took something that was bootstrapped financially that they wanted to do, they started doing it themselves, they started putting the show together, and that eventually turned into something that ended up being quite lucrative. So again, don't assume that you have to be famous before you can start podcasting. Anyone can and should start podcasting to benefit their career. So, question number 2. In your opinion, are there any skills involved in podcasting that translate directly to the more typical performing arts and vice versa? What qualities in general do you think work well in podcasting? Well, first and foremost, you have to have something interesting to say. That goes regardless of whether you're in a performing arts like acting or comedy or whatever, or you're doing a podcast. People want to hear what you say. They want to hear what you're an expert on, what knowledge you have that they need. So start there always. Now, as far as the performing arts skills, yeah, you need to be able to talk clearly and to be able to put together ideas in proper sentences and present them to your audience. People will forgive a lot. They'll forgive ums and ahs and stuttering and other things if the content is really, really good. If the content isn't good, though, they won't sit around to watch your podcast or listen to your podcast for very long. So start with the content, have some basic presentational skills. Now, I know people, even in this day and age, say that one of the most fearful things they can do is get up in front of a group of people and talk about something. You really need to get around this. And this is a case where I think there's some crossover, because one of the things I credit with my ability to get up in front of people and to do podcasts and do theater and other things is my theater background. I actually have a degree in theater. I worked in computers most of my career, but my degree is actually in theater, and I did probably every job you can do in the theater. And the fact is, that taught me how to be able to stand up in front of someone without nerves, without too many nerves, let us say, and actually perform in some way. Well, in any job you do today, presentations are a critical part of that job. Go into any school today and you'll see that they're teaching the kids how to do presentations because they already understand how important that is. So any experience you can get in presenting to other people, whether it's one or two, a whole theater, doing a podcast, doing a video like this, having a YouTube channel, that's going to benefit you because it will simply make you more comfortable in front of the camera or in front of an audience. And that will help in everything that you do. Now, of course, as students of Janet, you're studying voiceover. Well, in voiceover, you're already learning a lot of the skills you need to present yourself properly. And with voiceover alone, you get a little bit of a benefit if you don't like appearing on camera. Well, in most cases, you don't have to. You don't have to do a video podcast. You can do an audio podcast and hide behind the small amount of anonymity you get from people only hearing your voice. And so that can help you out as well. It also allows you to concentrate more on your voice and more on your presentation, whether you're doing straight nonfiction reporting or whether you're doing something fiction related. It allows you to concentrate more on that tool that you're hoping to develop with this class. Question number 3. Why should I look into podcasting if I happen to work on my own personal music as an artist or my voiceover career? Well, as I said in the answer to the first question, everyone can and should be using podcasting as part of the branding of themselves. And this goes, again, whether you're a plumber, an electrician, an actress, a musician, a voiceover person, whatever. In today's world, the way we get jobs, the way we attract opportunities to us is by telling people what we do and how well we do it. And the fact is, the best tools we have for doing that, for showing people what we do and how well we do it, is new media. It's making a video. It's recording an audio podcast. It's doing a reading of an audiobook for a friend. It's performing our own music. It's live streaming our own performances of our band or us as an individual. It's sharing what we do with as many people as possible. In that way, you attract opportunity to you. You're trying to give people as much opportunity as possible to stumble upon your work and think, that's interesting. I could use that in this way, this way. I would like to hire this person to do X, Y, and Z. I would like to use this music in my movie or my podcast or my video. I'd like to hire this person as a personality. I'd like this person to read my audiobook. If you're not out there sharing what you do and how well you do it with people, you're limiting the opportunities that are going to come to you. You're limiting the opportunities that are just going to show up knocking at your door because people simply don't know about you. If you're not already famous, you need to build awareness of who you are and what you do. And that is one great thing I think podcasting, new media, YouTube channels, live streaming, all this whole new media ball can do for you. It's to expose your work to others so that they can see it, and perhaps when they have a need in their work or their career, they can have your name at the top of their mind when the need arises. Question number 4. Is it hard to create content every week for a podcast? Yes. It depends, actually. Typically, I have people come to me and they want to do a daily show. Daily shows are tough. It is a real treadmill to get yourself on to do a daily show. Whether it's a word a day, a picture a day, anything on a daily basis is tough. Simply because you don't get any break. You don't get the weekend, if you will, to kind of think up new ideas and regenerate your energy. On a weekly basis, it's easier. I've been doing a weekly column since '97. I've been doing a weekly podcast since 2004. And yes, I miss a podcast every once in a while, but I tend to do about 52 shows or podcasts a year. The fact is, what I always tell people is if you're going to do a regular show, and I highly encourage you to do a regular show, that's part of how you make your podcast popular, is you integrate that show into your life. Oftentimes, what I'm doing a show about, the topics I write about, the topics I do a podcast about, are based on something that's going on in my life right now. To this day, I still carry a paper journal around with me, and when an idea strikes me, I write it down. I put it into my phone. I scribble it on a notebook. I scribble it on an envelope. Whatever happens to be available, I capture that idea. And that's what you need to do too. You need to capture ideas as they occur to you, because we tend to throw away lots of content every day. We have a great idea as we're on our walk or in the shower or whatever, and we don't capture it, and it's gone. It's very rare that you get those ideas back unless there's similar stimulus to trigger them again. Most times they just kind of go down the river of thought and you never think about them again. So you do want to make sure you're doing everything you can to capture the ideas and content and concepts that come into your life on a daily basis so that you have a well of information to draw from when it's time to do the show. Now, the other thing you can do too is you can spend an hour, 2 hours, a week, a month, whatever, simply sitting down and thinking about new content that you would like to create. You'd be surprised how many ideas you can come up with simply sitting around with your notebook and starting to jot stuff down. One idea leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And depending on your subject area, you might have news and information or opinion that comes up kind of randomly in the other news cycles that you can draw upon as well, so you always want to be watching for those. But in most cases, doing a weekly show is probably the best schedule I think you can set up. It isn't easy. It is a bit of work, as is every great opportunity. There's always some work involved in it. You're not going to escape that at all. But a weekly basis gives us some ability to recover. It gives us some time in our week to generate new ideas and new thoughts and new concepts for what we might want to put in our podcast. So typically I find that that's the easiest. But integrate it into your life. Think about those questions that come through your life that you're answering for other people. Think about those opinions that you're being asked for at a party, at a dinner, by friends, by family. What are your opinions? Maybe that's worth sharing in your podcast if it's on the topic of your podcast. Read the news, read your RSS feeds, read blogs, check out stuff on the internet, set up Google News alerts to trigger you to send you email whenever there's a new news item on your topic. I think you'll be surprised at how much content is really out there and how much information is available to you to draw upon to use in your own show. So don't let that scare you at all. I think that there's plenty of stuff out there to talk about. Question number 5. I'd like to know about microphones and other equipment I might need for podcasting or programs. Well, honestly, the technology side of podcasting has benefited greatly from the simplification and lower cost of technology these days. What used to cost people tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, simply recording a video like this or recording a radio show or something like that, has been reduced down to basically pennies. In most cases, the computer you have already has 99% of the equipment you need to record your first podcast, to do your first video. All you need to do is learn how to use the devices that are already there. You can use your webcam, you can use the built-in microphones. It won't be perfect, but it will certainly be adequate to get you started. Now, one of the first things I recommend for people, especially voiceover people who are working in the audio realm, is a nice condenser microphone. Now, this is one type of condenser microphone. This is a blue Snowball. The great thing about this is something like this didn't exist until, just 5, 6, 7 years ago maybe. And this is a microphone, a nice condenser studio quality microphone that actually plugs in to your USB port on your computer. Doesn't require a mixing board, doesn't require something called phantom power, which you may run into down the road if you're dealing with audio podcasts and microphones. It doesn't require any of the stuff that used to be required for recording great audio of your voice. It just simply, this is a standard USB printer cable, it plugs into the back of a microphone, and that plugs in to the USB port on your computer. You bring up a program, there's a free program I recommend called Audacity. which I'll put a link in the video description for this video, you can get for free from the internet, audacity.sourceforge.net. That's for Windows or Mac and Linux if you're a Unix user. GarageBand, which is what I use, comes with every Macintosh produced this day. You can also use GarageBand as a purchasable item on, actually now I think it's free, on your iPad or iPhone. And there's other free and premium programs you can download to your mobile devices to actually record right into them as well. You will be surprised the quality you can get out of your iPhone, iPad, or if you step up to a nice USB condenser microphone like the Blue. Blue also has a series of other products. They have another one called the Yeti, which looks more like a standard kind of desktop mic like you might see on Jay Leno's desk or Jimmy Fallon's desk when he's doing the Tonight Show. They also have another one called, I think, the Nessie. It's kind of this kind of gooseneck style microphone, and it actually has some built-in digital effects that you can apply, like echo or voice enhancement and other things. So look around out there. I have a bunch of links on my website as well to point to some good beginning microphones that you might be able to use. But if you listen to my career podcast, for example, I'm using a standard condenser mic with a small mixing board, but it's basically the same quality as this Blue. I am constantly amazed at how good it sounds. It sounds like radio. And in fact, it even sounds better than some radio you might hear out there. So get over to like your Best Buy or your Fry's or your typical electronics store, look online. You'll see example videos and example recordings using these microphones on most sites. There's tons of reviews out there, and you can listen to them being used in a wide variety of situations. I actually will use the Blue 2. It has a little switch on the back that allows me to change the pattern from either front only or 180 or 360, and I've actually used this to record and stream live events because it gives you very much a clear sound of what's actually in the room as you're at the event. And it can deal with very high sound levels like a band or something like that, so you won't get distortion. So again, very, very flexible microphone. It fits on the small stand that it comes with. It also fits on a normal microphone stand, so you can use it in a variety of applications. So again, just to review real quick, a nice condenser microphone like this, if you're doing voiceover especially. You may also notice too that I'm wearing some lavalier mics here. These are just standard plug-in lavalier mics that plug directly into my camcorder. They improve the quality of your sound for video dramatically. So I've seen these for as little as $59, $69 at your local electronics store. You can find them online for probably even cheaper. You just need to make sure that your camera has the ability to accept the input from the mics, but that's another way you can step up. And if you're doing lots of video and you're doing lots of active video, well, of course, you can do what they do on movies and television and get a wireless set of lavalier microphones that you can wear that connect wirelessly to your camera, and that gives you the freedom of not having the cable like I've got today. Question number 6. What makes a podcast unique? Well, that's a very easy question to answer. You are what makes your podcast unique. We are all unique human beings and individuals. We all have our own interests, our own likes, our own dislikes, our own opinions. You are what makes your podcast. Every podcast that's done out there is really about you. It's about your thoughts, your expertise, your feelings about your topic. And that's exactly what you should be sharing. Stand up, and if something affects you, if something interests you, if something offends you, chances are it's going to offend a certain percentage of your audience as well. It's going to intrigue a certain amount of your audience as well, and that's who's going to want to listen to your podcast. Yes, there are certain varieties of podcasts. You'll have a standard, say like a voiceover podcast, like my Career Opportunities podcast, where it's basically me reading my weekly column, and I go in and I take out the ums and ahs and make it sound very professional. Then there's interview shows, which I highly recommend to you. That's a great way of getting started with podcasting, is to go out and interview the people who you're most interested in. Because again, if you're interested in what that person has to say, your audience is going to be as well. And you sort of co-opt your guest's audience. You don't have to go to your guest and say, can I have your mailing list? Will you friend me on Facebook? No. You're going to do an interview with them. The first thing they're going to do is go and tell their audience, hey, I was interviewed by this podcast, you should go and listen to it. So lots of benefits there in a variety of ways. Then you have kind of the group show, the morning zoo style of show. 3 to 5 to 8 people sitting around throwing jokes back and forth, talking about the news of the day or whatever. Now, I will warn you, with group shows, the more people you add to a group show, the length of the podcast itself is going to expand dramatically, and you need to sort of control that. Most podcasts run between 5 minutes and an hour. I would say a good average length for a podcast is around 15 minutes. Obviously, if you're doing an interview, feel free to talk to that person for as long as you have something interesting to say. I think that that's one of the things that kind of breaks out of the mold is to have an interview. Sit down and have a conversation with someone. Beware, though, of shows that go on too long. Perhaps you need to split the show up into segments. Perhaps you need to simply put a timer on as you record the show. But oftentimes, the multi-person shows can actually go on much too long, and it gets boring for the people. You may have fun doing it, but your audience may not be that intrigued. Again, regardless of what style of podcast you're doing, what makes a podcast unique is you, your viewpoint, your attitudes, your opinions, your thoughts, your expertise. So always start there. Question number 7. How would you grab and build your audience, marketing yourself, if you start blogging in a sea full of bloggers? That is probably the most difficult question of any person who's starting out new. Because, yes, it can be very hard to raise your head above what we call the noise level of what's already out there. And I'm going to give you some probably counterintuitive advice on this. Don't worry about it. Each of us, as I said earlier in this video, each of us has an audience already. We have someone who's looking for our expertise, our opinion, our information, our entertainment, whatever. In most cases, if you are out there doing the work, if you're putting the shows out, if you're sharing them on your social media, sharing them in your blog, sharing them with your friends, your family, and everything, people will find you. And those people will tell their friends, their contacts, and so on and so on and so forth. It truly is very much at the beginning a word of mouth process. You, though, have to do the work of creating the product in order for people to discover it. There's an issue that I often somewhat joke about and somewhat don't with writers and any creative people is, unfortunately, many of us prefer to have written than to write. We want all the benefits of having produced something, having written something, having recorded video, having recorded a podcast, but we don't necessarily want to put the work into actually doing it. And I'm going to caution you right up front, the only way to grow a podcast is to actually start and get going and to work on it hard. Yes, you can be out there again, sharing it on social media, sharing it through traditional media, finding ways of commenting on what's happening in the world so that your podcast is discovered as a different viewpoint on a topic, or a fresh viewpoint, or a fresh take on something that's going on. In reality, though, it's really up to doing it. I have much more trouble getting people started podcasting than continuing podcasting or getting known as podcasters. The fact is, if you have great content, if you have something interesting to say, people will find you and they'll tell people about you. And that's what you truly want. Seth Godin, a famous writer on marketing and sales and stuff, says, the best marketing you can have is to have something worth talking about. Because if you have something that's cool, something that's neat, something that's worth talking about, people will talk about it. You won't have to market it. The product itself markets itself. It sells itself. So I would advise you to focus on what you're producing. The more you focus on what you're producing and making it available to people, the more it's going to grow. I think just by the very nature of the beast. People, if they enjoy it, will tell other people, will share it, and it will simply start to gather kind of a momentum snowball, like a snowball rolling downhill. It's going to grow in that regard. That said, you will have times down the road, once the show gets going, you'll be given opportunities to promote it further, or to be on another person's show, or to maybe even get covered in the mainstream media. Obviously, take advantage of that, but don't bet the farm on those things happening. And don't think that's where you need to start with your marketing either. I think this is question 8, if I've numbered these correctly, but when we are new actors in this industry, we constantly hear it's important to market yourself. I understand celebrities do that all the time through social media, but they already have an audience and that keeps growing. As a beginning actress, how can I make my audience begin to grow? How should I start using social media to get my name and work known and build an audience? Sort of goes back to the previous question, but one of the things I always recommend to people, especially people getting started in voiceover or acting or music or anything where you're performing, is you have to have examples of your work. We talk about having your voiceover reel or your acting reel or your directing reel or whatever. And the fact is, these days, it's up to you to be creating that reel every single day with everything you do. If you don't have an opportunity to be on film, to be in a play, to have your music performed on radio, you need to provide that for yourself. One of the great reasons to get podcasting is to simply make your work, and again, to reiterate what I said before, tell people what you do and how well you do it. Something that we do every year, as a group of friends of us do every year, is I put together a live reading of A Christmas Carol. This uses a script that Charles Dickens, a cutting of the story that he used for his own personal performances, and we simply get together and do a live streamed audio reading. It's not a dramatization, but it's just a reading of the story. We break it up into like 23 sections. Each person takes a section and reads that part of the story. Most importantly, if you're not being presented with opportunities to show people what you do and how well you do it, you've got to create them yourself. You've got to do what we did. You've got to start your own reading. Get together with a group of people and start putting together a radio show, like an old-fashioned radio show, where you can all use your voices. You can all play different characters. You can all act. Do a video series where you go out and interview people. Do whatever it takes for you to gain exposure. Again, we have so many tools at our fingertips today that simply weren't available 10 years ago. It's easy to go out and shoot a video of very high quality. It's easy to go out and record audio of very high quality. We carry a little movie studio, for the most part, a little audio studio in our pockets these days, along with a camera, a video camera, and a ton of other tools. There's really no reason for you not to be marketing yourself every single day, because the tools are there. The tools are no longer your limitation. It still tends to be our own limitations about marketing that hold us back. One of the things I recommend to people too is get good at grabbing the content you already create. If I'm at a museum and I'm visiting and looking around the collection, I'll take photos. I'll take some video. I'll maybe do some audio. I'm going to be there anyway. I'm going to be engaging in activity anyway. It's not like I made a special trip out there or anything like that. I'm already there doing the event. Why wouldn't I capture some of the content from that event to later share on my blog, on my podcast, whatever? I see a lot of people who don't do that. They often do some very cool things, but then they don't capture anything to share with their friends, their family, and their audience later. The more content you have, the more likely you're going to be stumbled upon by others, and that's exactly what you need to do. Thomas Edison said, "Good things come to those who hustle while they wait." Okay? Yes, we're all waiting in our lives to be discovered in some way, but the fact is, that's not what I consider a really great way of promoting your life and your career these days. We need to be out there hustling. We need to be giving people opportunity to stumble across us. We need to be in people's minds so that opportunity comes to us instead of us constantly being out there searching for opportunity, begging to be in this play, begging to get this job, begging to be in this band. I would love, over the course of my lifetime, to see that whole process flip over to the point where opportunity, it's normal for opportunity to come to you rather than having to go out and dig for it. Because the fact is, again, we have these tools available to us that we can use to share what we do with people. And as long as we do that, I think that's the biggest amount of marketing and networking we can do, is simply show people what we do and how well we do it. And I know I say that a lot, but for me, that is one of the largest benefits and largest reasons for doing any form of new media, whether it's podcasting, audio podcasting, videos, YouTube channels, social media, sharing it on our Tumblr, taking photography, whatever. That's the goal. Sharing the neat stuff about our life and our work with others. Well, I hope you found my answer to these questions interesting. It's a pity that I couldn't be there in the classroom with you this year, but hopefully I'll be able to do that again in the future. For more information about me and everything else that I do, you can visit my website, douglasewelch.com. There you'll find links to Careers in New Media and all my other podcast career opportunities, My Word with Douglas E. Welch, A Gardener's Notebook, Technology IQ, my social media feeds, and everything else. You'll find a lot of information there, and hopefully in watching what I do in my social media accounts and my podcast, that'll give you some ideas on what you might be able to do in yours.